The haters always say, Tonya, tell the truth. There's no such thing as truth. Everyone has their own truth.
You wanted to do a film about Tonya Harding for some reason. And that is quite apparent why that was a good idea after we saw this movie. And that's why it did so well at Toronto.
I didn't set out to do that at all. I had written a Christmas movie, and I knew I wanted to write something totally different than that. And I saw this great documentary on 30 for 30 that Nanette Burstein did about Tonya Harding. And I thought, well, nothing doesn't say Christmas like Tonya Harding. And I tracked her down and interviewed her, and I tracked Jeff Gillooly down and interviewed him, which was crazy because I'd never interviewed anybody before, but I didn't tell them that. And I just wore my way in, and when I heard their stories, they remembered nothing the same way. It was wildly contradictory. And I thought, well, that's my in. I'll just put every version up there and let the audience decide what's what.
It was fascinating to really get Tonya's backstory and to see the whole journey that got her to that place. I mean, part of the trick of that tone is the cast, of course, because they do that incredible dance between the humor and the drama, like all the time, and often all in the same sentence. It's such a tricky dance to do, and they were amazing with that. So that was a large part of it, and figuring out like the tone of it in terms of, it was really fun to work with the narrative between whose story was going on. And we actually found in the edit that we made that deliberately less clear. So the audience has to really concentrate to figure out whose version we're seeing at what moment in the film, which I think makes it much more interesting.
I wasn't aware of the story or the incident when I first read the script. I missed it completely. It was actually better that way, I think, to approach it with fresh eyes and with no preconceived notions of who these people were or how I felt about the situation. And that way I could really delve into Tonya's life story as opposed to focusing on the incident, because that is the inherent tragedy, that she was, you know, she had a very hard life, and she was an incredible athlete, and all of that was overshadowed by the incident, which is you see in the film. But I met with her beforehand. Craig and I flew up to Portland, but I didn't want to meet with her until I'd done all of my prep and decided how I was going to play the character. And once I'd done all that work and knew exactly the character I was going to play, then I met with her just to meet her as a person. I didn't want it to feel like research. I didn't want to be meeting her and picking it apart and thinking, oh, actually, I'm going to change this now. I wanted to have all those decisions made. And yeah, and then we met her in person. It was great.
Allison Janney just knocks it out of the park again. Wow.
Stephen Rogers wrote this part for me. And
Steve wrote it for you, right?
He wrote it for me. And, the fact that he knew that I was going to enjoy playing a character like this is just, I don't know what it says about me or him or our friendship, but it's extraordinary to get to jump into scenes with Margot. And we hadn't met before, and that's such a strange thing about what we do. And she's so game. We just jumped into these unbelievable fight scenes. They had a very volatile relationship, and it was incredible to play and have Craig just encourage us to. It was, you would do a movie like this, not a huge budget, and you don't have a lot of time to work things out. We just would jump in and be fearless. I knew I was playing a real life character, but we didn't know at the time if she was alive or dead, and so it was pretty much Tonya's experience of her mother and a little artistic license thrown in from Stephen Rogers, and then hair and makeup and me just stepping into it and having a lot of fun and finding, believe it or not, the heart in that woman and her, what she wanted, and in her point of view, it's the truth, and then whatever everybody else thinks.
What about Jeff's side? Because you met with him. How did you find him and in playing him?
It was a little surreal because I couldn't really find actually enough stuff on him. I mean, there's maybe 2 or 3 interviews online, really, and what really helped me was that Stephen had an interview that he had done with Jeff in order to write the script, and so I was just listening to that over and over again. And to be honest with you, I actually really wanted to meet him because I couldn't find anything of him smiling anywhere. And I was like, it just was a big thing for me to see how he, you know, his face would light up, and so that and kind of asking him repeatedly what his take was, which was very similar to what Stephen had on the interview.